Yeah, I made sure.
Guys, good Friday morning. Thank you kindly for joining us. Welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness. Today's show, I think, is going to be just absolutely fantastic. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth country in the world, on the I Love CVille Network. We are presented by Yes Realty Partners, Keller Williams Alliance, trusted names in the real estate game, Keller Williams Alliance, and Yes Realty Partners, and of course, the fine folks at Intrastate Service Company. Thank you for being a part of the show. Rosemary Postel, welcome to the show. I hope you have power in Ivy. Rosemary, let us know if you could. Keith Smith, we will get to that comment in a matter of moments. Let's go to, are we going to go 3-shot or 4-shot? Are you in the mix today, J-Dubs? Okay, let's go. We'll go 3-shot here. I wasn't sure if you set it up on your desk. So 3-shot, Beckham's on screen, Elberson's on screen. First thing you'll notice that these people are not Keith Smith.
Not by a long shot.
He's Lee. He's Quinton.
If you add up our ages, though, we're close to Keith.
Yeah.
Not a little bit shy.
He's watching right now. That was a zing right there. So que pasa, fellas? What's the good word today?
There were all these flashing lights over the darkness that is Fluvanna with the lights out, and we don't know where Keith is. Keith and Yuna are both gone.
They're doing they're recharging. Masterminding right now.
I like my story better.
Doing some business planning for 2022, but have no fear. Look who's here. Have no fear. Look who's here.
Keith and I are both Marines, so I feel like I can step in for at least 20% of his intelligence.
Oh, stop, Lee Elberson. Come on. One of the I'll straight up say this. I embarrass you all the time.
You always do this.
You know where I'm going to go. You do know where I'm going to go.
You think I'm the best squash player in the world?
That's definitely not what I was going to say.
I'm the worst.
You are not the worst. I was going to say the smartest guy that's ever graced the I Love CVille set is right here. And dude, did you get a new jacket?
This is, yeah.
You look dope, dude.
This is actually courtesy of my brother-in-law, Jared Edwards, my business partner in 8 Hats. When I went down to Louisiana, there's this place, Mosley and Hollard. Really just like down-to-earth dudes. And
you look like a pimp. You look good.
Custom shirt. Dude, look, you can always tell a good shirt. Look at the inseam right there.
Can we stand up and look at this?
It's just...
Is that Lee Elberson or is that Channing Tatum right there? Is that Lee Elberson?
I was thinking more of Chris Hemsworth if I kind of breathe out like this.
Okay, so now we are exaggerating on multiple
big time.
fronts.
Big time, yes.
Yeah. Beckham, Quinton, who is the sharpest dressed Hollywood actor, do you think?
Who's the sharpest dressed Hollywood actor?
What actor should we acknowledge when we're making a comparison and trying to blow a little smoke up his tail, saying he's looking super sharp, super handsome?
Well, you've never worn anything from Glenn Close that you could pull off, so I don't know that
you can. Glenn Close.
I'm just saying.
That's the first time Glenn Close is ever mentioned on the I Love CVille.
Yeah. Hey, leave the Quinton, yeah.
So, fellas, what is the topic du jour this morning, QB?
We're talking about, he and I sort of traded a couple emails before he faded into obscurity. And then we want to talk about things that we've learned and what we're looking forward to in the year to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lee just spent some time, he's bi-coastal. Lee is living a bi-coastal lifestyle. You traveling quite a bit?
Traveling quite a bit, yeah. I took the red eye into Charlottesville yesterday morning.
Get out.
Yeah.
You're a baller, and you're here today?
Here today, man. Love this.
Did you regret coming here knowing the forecast?
I never.
He watched me on Monday, and he was like, I'd better be there on Friday. Switched his flights.
I saw Quinton, and I was like, wow, he needs a lot of help.
No.
Anytime Quinton or you ask me to be on the show, I look forward to it. It's one of the most exciting parts of it.
People saying on the feed, you're the Ryan Reynolds of the I Love CVille Network, Lee Elberson.
I'll take that.
Dude, that's
100 times over.
Yeah, dude. Van
that's
Wilder, Ryan Reynolds.
Compliment.
Yeah, massive compliment. QB has power. If you notice, QB is in a different flannel today.
I am,
on the show on Tuesday.
Flannel. It was red.
It looks sharp, my friend.
It was red. Today's blue.
It looks thick.
I know, it's perfect for this
it's
weather.
It's very soft.
Yeah, it's very,
See
very
that,
soft.
Quinton? It's very soft.
He's wrapped in a blanket, basically. That's
yes,
very
I am.
Nice.
I have multiple layers, and you didn't see me walk in with the scarf and the beanie either.
You didn't. You came in with the scarf and a beanie without messing up your hair.
Oh, no, this is just.
That is not natural.
No.
Not natural.
You've got his hair is always on point.
I know. I try to. I'm trying to keep up with QB over here.
Yeah, it's so not true.
So, how was the holidays, Lee Elberson? Before we go to the topic du jour.
Yeah, holidays were great. We spent some time. My wife's family lives in Silicon Valley, so we spent some time there. Then we drove up to Bear Valley. It's a sort of ski resort town. Got a lot of snow, 5 feet of snow. Got stuck on the mountain for a day. Luckily, they had a generator there and lots of firewood, so that was fun. Save one thing, our cousins got in a head-on collision. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. And then I went down and spent some time with my cousin, Darren Pashota, on New Year's Eve. Jerry knows this very well because I was with Darren Pashota.
He was holding a bottle of Makers.
And Blake Hawthorne, two very big fans of the I Love CVille show. And they were like, hey, we should send a video to Jerry. And so we sent Jerry a video on New Year's Eve.
Well, I very much appreciated it. And then I liked the 2.0 version of the video that came the next day.
Well, we shot 2 shots. I think I might have cursed in the first video. And I was like, I don't want Jerry to see that video. And I sent him the wrong video.
Well, once you send the text, it goes. You know,
I know.
QB, ¿Qué pasa, chico? How are you?
I'm good. We have agents with power coming back on in their homes, and so that's exciting. We have others that still don't have it. But they're troopers. They're just moving forward and hanging in there. Shenanigans was awesome yesterday, by the way.
The toy store?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
So one of our staff members, she has been in a hotel room since Monday with her entire family, which includes 2 8-year-old twins. And this sounds like you've behaved very badly and you've gone to the pearly gates and been judged lacking. It just seems like torture to be in that small a space for all of this. And of course, the twins love it. It's like snowpocalypse vacation. They think it's amazing. And she looked like she was a woman on the edge. So
that's about my wife right now.
So I waited. I showed up at Shenanigans the minute they were open. There were 2 lovely little staff people in there that I was like, hey, I need gifts for 8-year-olds that require no parental supervision, like things that you can hand them that they can go do by themselves that won't get old in 10 minutes.
Is that an iPad, right?
I was gonna say no.
There was a price limit.
Okay.
No, because iPads require parental supervision,
and they also require power.
And they require power.
Yeah,
it's like nothing that plugs in.
And they don't spark any imagination. I would say. Yeah.
Well,
we'll look that word up later.
Yeah. Well.
And so they were awesome. They found perfect gifts. They bagged them up for me and made them look like presents as opposed to sanity devices. And it was fun to go pass that off.
You
Santa Claus.
I know. I was literally going to say that. Should we, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, you've been a good Samaritan quite a bit with travels to the eastern part of Albemarle County.
Now, I'm an old man with a lot of bad karma to make up for, so
is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
You're trying to go from purgatory to heaven here?
As the clock keeps ticking, you're like, oh, I should do some more good deeds. Like somebody might be keeping track.
You're not an old man. You have the spirit of a 19-year-old, my friend.
He's not an old man. He also, a lot of good deeds this last year. Everyone in Quinton's circle experiences just great times.
Oh,
Quinton's
put that in
a lot
perspective.
of movie parties. I was sorry to miss the Spider-Man movie party, but just
Spider-Man
everyone in
movie
Quinton's
party was
circle
fun.
always has it.
Oh, no. Can you tell us about this? I'm on and he's going to blame me because he's invited me to the circle. I'm kind of on the peripheral of the circle right now. It's kind of an aspect of being a father of a 3.5-year-old and married. You remember those times? I would love to be in the inner circle. I can't wait to play poker, have bourbon, hang out late night, watch movies, and fraternize with you guys. I freaking love you guys. But can you put in perspective Quinton's circle for us? And the experiences of Quinton's
I would say I'm still on the periphery too. I've only been to some of the events, but when Quinton throws an event, so Dune was the first event I went to.
Dune was the first one that you went to, yeah.
He rented out a theater in Violet Crown, and it was
dope.
Yeah, we had free drinks, popcorn, and just got a bunch of people together for a good time from all walks of life, and it was just a great time. And we watched Dune, and he did the same thing a couple of times. I think you had several screenings of Dune and a few screenings of Spider-Man, and so it's just a time to get a bunch of people from all walks of life
That's
together.
generous and amazing.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just see, I don't really have a circle. I just belong to lots of other people's circles, and sometimes it's fun in this sort of comic way to throw them all in the same room.
Did we get one of my favorite people, Rachel Burns, in the mix for one of those?
She was invited to both, but she couldn't make it to either.
Okay, huge fan of Rachel Burns. If you're watching, someone let her know I said that. So did you have beverages?
We would. Are you?
Because
okay. So Violet Crown serves beer.
I know.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's a fantastic theater, right?
And if I drank beer, I would have had that.
And they had a special beer on tap for Dune. Actually.
They had a Quinton beer?
No, it was for Dune. It was like a pumpkin ale or something, maybe.
It was the something pumpkin
spice.
ale beer that.
Violet Crown's a great place.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
I'll never go to Regal ever again.
Well, okay.
Violet Crown. I go to Alamo a lot.
That's the question I was going to ask you. Alamo or Violet Crown? Because you guys are downtown guys. You guys are cool, popular, in the mix, downtown guys.
So how this entire theater rental thing started was, I have sort of what I refer to as my godchildren. So it's friends of mine that have kids that.
Is that Rob
I've
Alley?
watched them grown up. No, Rob's not a child. He's a grown-ass man.
For Rob.
And so on occasion, when the adults want to go out, I offer to watch the kids. And so there was an event where I had several of them at once, and I didn't really feel like entertaining them. And I don't like humans in my house. That's just for me. And dogs are allowed, but humans,
Too much work.
Nah, it's too much. So I rented a theater because I thought it's a 2.5-hour movie. There is the drive-through right there from the downtown mall. So I stood outside. They drove past and threw kids out. We ushered them into the theater where there was pizza and popcorn and sodas and snacks, and they were entertained for 2.5 hours, and all I had to do was sit in the back and watch a movie I wanted to see anyway.
So you're a problem solver. That's brilliant.
So that was a lot of fun, and then you avoid issues of, I don't want to give anybody's kids COVID in any variety, and so these were all kids in the same circle and families that are in the same circle. You avoid that. The theater's 27 seats, so it's just about the right size, and it's relatively inexpensive, and they do an awesome job. You don't have to have tickets or armbands or anything. You say, hey, I'm over there, and they say, okay, and off you go.
Violet Crown or Alamo Draft House?
I prefer Alamo because
they have a full bar.
Well, they have a full bar.
They do have a full bar. It's a good deal, though. They have good specials.
They have a full bar. They have great vegan options, and they deliver straight to your seat. You just show up in the theater, and then they deliver to you.
Violet Crown does not?
No, Violet Crown, they give you a little buzzer, and you have to walk out of the theater and go pick it up. But still, the fact that they serve...
But if you're in a whole theater, you can pre-order everything. And I'm not suggesting I would do this, but it seems like it would be simple, especially in a private theater, to sneak in like airplane booze.
Oh, I like that.
The little
QB, flask.
Have the flask.
And they even have like the fountain set up right outside the theater where you can get fresh ice. And
so, are you a flasker or an airplane bottle guy?
So part of how come Rachel and I show up so many places together is I show up there so that she doesn't have to show up alone, and then she brings me purse bourbon.
I need to tag Rachel Burns. Can I tag Rachel Burns here?
Of course you can.
So we get her in the mix. Rachel Burns, we're giving you some love, like we always do.
This dates way back in time with Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors. They had an event that was a fundraising event that we were both at, where you painted, it's like paint by numbers with the instructor, and they had beer and wine, and she's like, you have to go because it's charity, and it's like, I really love charity, but I don't like beer or wine. And so we showed up together, sat at a little, two people to a table, sat together, and she snuck in purse bourbon.
Ooh.
And by snuck in, I meant everybody knew we had it, and nobody said anything. And so we shared purse bourbon while we painted really bad sunflowers.
That sounds
Mine
fun.
looked more like a nuclear apocalypse, but...
they have those like wine and design nights.
Yeah.
I like the bourbon and design nights. That actually sounds
It
like
was a lot of fun. I still have those paintings, by the way.
What if you were doing a bourbon and design night? What would your design?
I am not
Me either.
an artist. I don't know. I probably something abstract and mathematical in some way, like how many different fractal boxes can I make in a painting or something.
Fractals are really hard to draw.
I don't even know what a fractal is.
A true
How about your beautiful wife? I bet you she's good at design.
Oh, she can design and create anything. That's her first thought is if she wants something, she's like, how can I make this? She has access to. She has a 3D printer she can use. She knows how to use online 3D machine shops. She makes all sorts of stuff. So yeah, she makes tons of stuff. She designs.
She's also
she paints.
incredibly gracious with some of the heinous things that you do around the house.
What heinous things do you do around the house?
Okay.
What
Are you
heinous
talking
things?
about the time that we were up till 6 a.m. hooting and hollering?
That's one of them.
That's
Yes,
one of them.
that was
So you
one of
hosted
them.
a poker night and you were up till 6 a.m.?
Yeah, last time Quinton and we had a few people over. We played poker until the sun came up.
And did she was sleeping?
She was sleeping. She came in. She went out that night too.
She went out
came
on-
in at about midnight, and
She evacuated.
yeah, she's
Smart lady.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Smart lady.
About midnight was when things really started playing.
Was that when the alarm went off?
What, on Jeep Vader?
No,
or on the house?
no alarms went off. He's kidding.
Can we go to the Jeep Vader Instagram page? I'm putting you on the spot here and get a picture of his fantastic Jeep. I bet that's doing well in the snow.
Do you still have a Halloween picture? I loved Jeep Vader for Halloween.
Oh yeah, you should pull up the Jeep Vader Halloween picture. That was all Alex is doing actually.
He
I
has
know.
the most. Is this accurate? The most tricked out Jeep in the Charlottesville area.
No,
There's
definitely
another
not.
one that's
No,
around town that's pretty
there's-
tricked out.
There's plenty of more tricked out Jeeps. Mine.
Top 5?
I wish. I don't know. I would say I'm very intentional with the design on Jeep Vader.
Is there a Jeep tricked out club in town?
Oh, there's a few clubs. Yeah.
There are.
Yeah. There's an overlanding club, which is what we do, is camping / off-roading. But there's a lot of. this Jeeps. The first thing you do when you get a Jeep is you trick it out.
Well, I mean, isn't the acronym Jeep just empty every pocket? Is it the acronym for Jeep?
There's a number of. That's a really good one.
That's a good one, right? You've heard that one before?
Oh yeah.
My friend, so 2022, we have a lot to be thankful for, Quinton Beckham.
We have quite a bit to be thankful for. I find it interesting, like we don't realize how much we have to be thankful for until something comes along like snow and takes away so much stuff that we take for granted.
Amen, brother.
And then all of a sudden, people get nicer and they help one another even though you're a random stranger. We realize how much we really are grateful for. I was talking to Judah before we got here about how even when I recognize how much privilege I live in when, the worst event for me last week was that the pre-start on my car couldn't connect from the satellite internet so that it was warm when I got in, and how that infuriated me.
Gosh.
And then after I was done being infuriated, I was like, you're so dumb.
Yeah. Perspective, right? It's great when things like this happen because it gives you perspective. You lose power, you lose water, and you think, wow, this is not a problem that we had 50,000 years ago.
Blake Hawthorne, Happy New Year. He's watching. Give some props to Blake.
Happy New Year, Blake. Got to spend New Year's with Blake. Got to spend several days with Blake.
Blake, you're good people. We appreciate your support of the show. I agree, and I was having this conversation with the family. So we're in a different position than you guys. You popular, cool, hip, downtown guys have power. You're on the grid.
And electricity.
And electricity. Jeep Vader's on screen? Jeep Vader is on screen. Look at the screen. We have a 10-second delay here. So you'll see it. Okay, I see it right now. Do you see Jeep Vader right there?
I do see Jeep Vader.
Wait, am I supposed to be on the feed?
Okay, all right. Lee is not on
that's Jeep
Facebook.
Vader. Okay, yeah.
There's Jeep Vader right there. Jeep Vader looks great. So we're in a different position than you guys. The Keswick area, no power. Power lines on the ground. No heat. Some of us no water. And the water that we have, if we do have it, freezing cold. We're heating the home with gas fireplaces. And I was thinking, and I was having this conversation with my wife, it could be worse. We have a roof. We have a gas fireplace, a gas stovetop that we can use a lighter to start. The gas fireplace. She cooked up some delicious eggs, some grilled cheese, some tomato soup. We charge the devices here. We download stuff. We bring them home. Trey's happy, our son. I mean, it could be worse. It always could be worse.
Yes, I think that's the thing that comes with perspective. And, the power lines, they're trying to get there. I mean, it's only in the Dominion's advantage to try to get them back up as fast as possible.
We should talk about that.
I think they've moved very fast considering the amount of carnage I saw when I was out on Monday, because it was 4 hours for people driving that morning from Richmond to Charlottesville because there were trees blocking multiple sections. And so I don't know how the power line people were going to magically teleport to where they needed to be when you go along. And if you drive down 250 and you just look to your right, every section between telephone poles, the lines have trees leaning on them. So it seems like there was even a lot of prep work to do to fix the lines, and a couple of substations that were down as well.
Can you think of a more underappreciated or challenging profession than an electric
Realtors.
company's linesman, the linesman for an electric company? These dudes are nomadic. They travel from disaster to disaster following weather patterns for their job.
I think it was Ray it might have been Ray
Cadell?
that was talking to ones that had driven in from Mississippi, still had their luggage in the back of their trucks, hadn't even checked into a hotel, that were driving up to work on lines.
Think about that. Doesn't that put things in perspective?
Big time. Yeah. I mean, I think they are very underappreciated. And I mean, I think, when you're without power, you wonder, like, why aren't they trying harder? But it's only to their advantage, to the power company's advantage, to get you back on the grid, right? That's how they make their money. So they're trying as hard as they can. It's just if you're in a more rural area,
there's a lot more
they have to
challenges.
prioritize, right? And it's also, do they have to clear an entire tree for 2 houses? Or should they clear 2 trees for 100 houses?
Yeah, that's the tough thing right there.
Yeah.
The only beef I have is help me with the word, is it monopolistic nature of the power companies? I have no other choice but Dominion. Do you guys have other choices for electric?
Mm-mm.
We only have Dominion. So that monopolistic nature of Dominion allows them to get away or try things that otherwise other companies would not. Say a tutoring company, advertising agency, real estate company. They were making promises of getting power back online throughout the week between 6 and 11 p.m. Tuesday, 6 and 11 p.m. Wednesday, 6 and 11 p.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where in our businesses, we would do a better job of, tempering expectations, perhaps?
Yeah.
You disagree?
A little bit.
How so?
I think that's that's a very difficult thing to estimate. They don't know the extent to every single possible tree down, and I think that they're making their best estimate. And to my knowledge, they subcontract out a lot of the work for repairing all the lines.
I think it's all subcontracted.
Yeah, so they subcontract all of that out, and with that many subcontractors and that many unknowns, it is monopolistic, but I think it would be difficult to have another company competing on the same infrastructure.
What do you think, QB? Michael Beckham says hello. David Verrell in the Outer Banks is watching. Comments
hey,
coming
Michael.
in. That's your nephew?
It's my nephew.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Where does he live?
He is in Arizona.
So California.
Outside of Phoenix.
California, Arizona, and the Outer Banks right now on the feed. What do you think about how they're managing this? And you're generally an optimist, positive guy. So we were joking before the show. We have 2 bulls and 2 bears on the show. Can we flip and get Judah's face on camera right there to show the second bear?
Judah's like, oh, I hate when you do that.
He's the bear.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, it's hard for me to be too upset. I'm still in love with snow. I'm kind of enamored of it growing up in California where we never had it. It's fun to have snow fall around your house. I also think that even when we do suffer from power outages, we're still living in a space where we have resources to cope with that in a way that a lot of people don't. So I'm really hesitant to complain about it because in the grand scheme of things, my life has changed very little because of snowfall and power outages. It's been more people around me. Secondly, you're too young to remember when utilities were not public. And there was a lot.
Dominion's not public.
You're too young to remember when there was no such thing as a public electric company. Back in the days of Ma Bell, back when these were sort of mostly government, pseudo-government entities that had a lot more money set aside in support of infrastructure because there was not a profit scheme, there were not investors, there was not the same sort of structure. And I think if you just look around our country, electricity suffers from a lot of the same infrastructure needs as do bridges and transportation and Amtrak. And so I'm curious to see the swing. If you've watched with internet, we're talking a whole lot more about government being involved in internet so that it is more evenly distributed. And in my lifetime, I've watched that pendulum swing from where a lot of what we thought of as public requirements were really run by government entities, paid for through taxes and fees, and then swung in Reagan's time to being completely privatized, and now you're starting to see that swing back the other direction.
So let's go down this road, and we don't have to if you don't want to. I was having this conversation. Go ahead.
I was going to just say, it's a primer for this. This is a good conversation because the grid is going to be a lot more stressed in the next 20 years.
Oh,
we're going to have a lot more demand on this, which we're going to talk about.
Mr. Larkin's going to come out of the works here and say we never mentioned the charging stations at home.
Okay, we'll cover that next show. Sorry, the next show. Quinton has topics for the show. So
Rachel Burns, hello.
Hey, Rachel.
Love you, Rachel Burns.
Hi, Rachel.
So this is a good topic to cover here. I was having this conversation with my dad. We don't have to go down this road if you don't want to. It just got me nostalgic. He and I were talking about the public utility nature of vaccinations and whether, like the Modernas, the Pfizers, the BioNTechs, those companies should make the cocktail or the recipe for these vaccines more ubiquitous or available to the globe. Like, make it like essentially a public utility. And his argument was, if that does happen, then why would the medical companies continue to innovate and work around the clock if their hard work essentially just turns into oxygen, or like, you know what I mean? Like something that everyone has access to without necessarily having to pay for it. So he was a proponent for the privatization of vaccinations because it creates innovation and hard work from those privately owned companies. They're publicly traded, but you know what I mean, for-profit companies. What do you think on that's happening? I'll get out of your way.
I'll push back on that
Imagine
first.
that. You want to push back on that?
I push back for the sake of a talk show, Jerry.
I like that.
But actually, no, I would push back on that. I would say that if you hold the recipe for the vaccine, you're not incentivized to do any better on that vaccine. By releasing it, you know, I think it's evident at this point COVID's not going away. Release this version and let the rest of the world catch up, and then innovate on the next vaccine. You know, so maybe it would drive further innovation. Hey, you have the 1.0 model, we have the 2.0 model. So I would argue that it might further innovation.
Thoughts on that?
I think that most of the basic research is public domain. So two companies didn't independently come up with mRNA vaccines. This is decades of research dating back to before you were born.
That's true.
In biology, in physics, and molecular biology, in how proteins work, thousands and thousands of things that have led us to this point, the vast majority of which are public domain. So it's almost like you're claiming General Motors should let go of the plans to an engine. Everybody knows how to build an engine. It's more the parts and pieces that they've put onto it that is specific.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Thoughts on that?
Well,
Break it out. We'll get to your comment here.
yeah, I wonder. No, Quinton's absolutely right. The research on mRNA vaccines is public. You know, part of it's an engineering problem. How do you come up with the infrastructure to generate that many? So even if they released it, I mean, it probably takes several $1 billion to create infrastructure to be able to create and distribute vaccines on a global scale.
Ray says, where are the at-home test kits we need? So Quinton's background,
I give up.
Prior to real estate was medicine. Am I right on that? You were in the medicine space.
In the medicine space.
You were you not?
Yes, I was in
You have to
orbit. I was
claim
in
the-
orbit
you have to
in the
claim
medicine
entire-
space.
You are
I have
the expert,
entire
foremost
space.
expert. Yeah, you're the foremost expert here.
There are a short supply of those. Lee, I know you got a take on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the at-home are antigen tests, right? And when you go to like Blue Ridge Health District, those are molecular tests, right? Is that? Yeah. The antigen tests, as far as I know, are not much less accurate than like molecular tests like PCRs. Is that true, Quinton?
It depends on whether we're talking quantifiable or qualitative. So one of them has a much higher false positive.
Mm-hmm.
One of them has a much higher false negative.
Yeah.
So you tend to deploy them to different communities based on what you think is the safest bet. This is way too complicated a topic to solve in some method amongst the three of us, I think. And I think most of the at-home tests are not helpful because by the time you figure out if it's really accurate, you're past the quarantine status.
Lee?
Get a positive quarantine. You can be past the quarantine and non-infectious and still have a positive at-home test that is not accurate.
Grayson, get Lee's take on the CDC cutting quarantine times. Thank you, Grayson, for that question.
Okay, can I first, I've got Quinton's bug in my head. Maybe we should turn this on a positive light. The fact that there is a shortage of rapid antigen tests is a good thing. People are desiring to be tested because they're worried about the safety of themselves and others.
Unless they're hoarding them. Unless they're hoarding them. Like toilet paper circa early COVID.
I would be surprised because there's not a big black market for them. If people were hoarding them, they would likely be trying to turn a profit on them. Because
they were
if you bought
hoarding
hundreds of them, you're not likely to use hundreds of them this year, and so you might want to sell them. So I don't think there's a big black market for them. So I don't think that that's happening.
Hoarding them if they're parents with kids and they need tests down the road as their kids are exposed and they're concerned. Now, to your point, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're very well read, you're a very smart man. I've made the statement, the smartest guy that's ever graced the I Love CVille Network. Those tests have a timestamp on them.
I'm not entirely sure what the expiration date is on the
Quite
tests.
positive they have the take-home tests have timestamps on them.
Everything has an expiration. I don't know what the time period is. I've taken it. I took one a few days ago.
Thank you for taking that. Was it negative?
It was definitely negative.
I'm
Yeah.
glad. Thank you for taking
Triple
it.
vaxxed and negative. Yeah.
I believe they have a timestamp.
I think for where we live, more important than the number of tests that are available to us, there is a huge population of vaccinated people.
Yeah.
Which means the ability to impact healthcare, economy, day-to-day business in our local area is very, very low. Do you know people that are positive that have gotten Omicron around you? I know several.
Yeah.
And
it's everywhere now.
And they don't feel well, but they're wandering around their house doing projects, and they're walking down the street with masks on, and they're being courteous to not pass it on, but they're not in the hospital, the vast majority of them. We see a lot of people in the hospital just because it's so very contagious, but as is the general way with viruses, the faster you mutate, the more infectious you become, and the lower the morbidity goes. And so this is no different. And I think everybody should see everything that's going on as kind of the normal, good, endemic state. You know, we're moving from pandemic to being endemic. It's going to be a thing that's probably going to linger around for a while that we're going to have to deal with. And it's not going to interrupt your life the way it has for the last 24 months. So take a deep breath. Be reasonable, like we all should have been doing for years. You know, I can't tell you how many agents or staff or me, we would show up with the flu and share it with everybody in the office.
And go to an open house.
And boy, wasn't that sweet of us. And, you know, I'm happy people are staying home when they have something contagious, and I don't care what it is. And let's just be happy that we're out of this really crisis stage. I know we love to embrace crisis because everybody secretly in their heart of hearts is waiting for the world to end. But
I'm not. Are you, Lee? I am not waiting for the world to end. Lee, the answer should be a quick no, Lee.
I'm not waiting. No. Yes, it is an obvious no.
Okay, God.
I should not.
The man
I was not
thinking
hesitating.
over that.
I think about every question.
Judah, could you put on screen the definition of the word irony?
Quick no, Lee. All right, so comments coming in. We'll acknowledge the viewership. President of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, agrees with Q.
I love it when Neil agrees with me. It means I said something right.
Q speaks the truth. Public money from NIH grant funds millions of dollars of research annually, says the father of a chemistry PhD who may be competing for such a grant.
The charity group that I've been on the board of for 20 years now, we funded white papers to get NIH money to fund things we wanted.
There you go. Blake Hawthorne in California agrees with Quinton. Quinton bringing up a huge talking point on profitability versus the greater good in certain industries. Actually, I brought that up. Case in point, Texas ice disaster last year. The people with SFR type homes weren't SFR? Single family
Residents?
Yep.
Okay, single family. The people with single family resident type homes weren't affected the way so many were that lived in apartments and had no way to have a fire or place to go when the pipes burst, the gas was out, and there was no desire to upgrade to be proactive on issues they knew were going to happen. Profits came first, no balance. Like Hawthorne, your cousin?
No,
your friend.
Friend, yeah, former roommate. I'm just going to try to keep saying this because Quinton, you told me this. Try to put a positive light on this. I just want to point out something Quinton said that I find important is that, as we move into 2022, we're looking at the pandemic in a different way and saying, my job is to do everything I can to be safe within my control and then try to start to go on and live my life, because there's not going to be a time period. Hey, the pandemic's going to end in March. It's going to end in April. It's going to be with us for years, maybe decades. We don't know. But our job is to do whatever we can and just try to keep living our lives. Is that what you're going to do in 2022?
Yeah.
Jerry, is that what you're doing in 2022?
I mean, that's what I have been doing.
Great.
That is what I have been doing.
Yeah.
I've said this many times. It's be prepared, be cautious, but don't live in fear. We can't. You know what? We'll never get back. We'll never get back 10:53 a.m. on Friday, January 7th. So if 10:53 a.m. on Friday, January 7th,
2022,
what was spent in the corner on a couch, afraid to go out, won't we have regrets on what we did there? I mean,
wait till you're my age. The regrets pile up.
You have regrets? You don't have the spirit of a man with regrets.
Oh, there's so many things to regret. It's only ever possible to connect the dots when you're looking backwards.
Perspective.
Yeah, you can only look backwards and do that. Looking ahead and instead of looking backwards keeps us from doing the next mistake. And so I think we learn from what we've been through. We do better the next time around. And we're on the upside of this. I refuse to subscribe to an interpretation that says this is getting worse again.
Yeah,
hey,
I agree.
I'm actually bearish about the COVID outlook for 2022.
How so?
Believe it or not.
You're bullish.
Bullish, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
bullish.
what I meant to say, bullish. I think, I think our perspective is going to help us get through this. We're going to keep having variants, but I think if Omicron is any indication, they might be more contagious, but it's less severe.
Exactly.
And so that's going to allow us to live our lives more with lower death rates. And I think then we can feel more comfortable going out. And that's going to be great for the economy. It's going to be great for mental health. It's going to be great for a lot of things. So.
I mean, you have, and Quinton, I'm curious of your take on this. You have a growing population of America getting vaccinated. In a micro standpoint, Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville, we are one of the top vaccinated regions.
What is our vaccination rate? Are we 80%?
It's higher than that.
I've lost track.
I think it's higher than that.
Higher, okay.
We are one of the top vaccination regions, I would say, in the country. Okay? Now, there's a scale. I'm not saying we're number one, but I'm just putting the category top out there. People are vaccinated. People know more about this. Omicron is, while contagious, less collateral damaging.
Less severe, yeah.
Less severe, okay? I'm very bullish on 2022. I'm bullish on mom and pops. I'm bullish on real estate. I'm bullish on tutoring companies, podcasting networks. I'm bullish on advertising agencies. I think 2022 is going to be our best year yet.
I don't know about that.
What do you say is the best year you're at? You're going to say 2019?
Are we talking about personal or global or just
anywhere you want to go on that?
Anywhere I want to go on that. My personal best year was 2014, but that's when I met my wife, so that's a microcosm.
She's not watching. You don't have to talk like that.
I think she is watching.
Oh, sorry. Hi,
yeah.
he meant it.
It doesn't make a difference. It really was. I think. Well, as Quinton said, it's really about perspective. So I might agree with you that 2022 might be our best year because 2019, as Quinton said, we were coming into the office sick because the pandemic could have hit at any time in the last thousands of years, any time that humans have been alive. It's just that now we have the perspective of knowing. So maybe I will agree that 2022 brings us the intelligence and the knowledge to be able to move forward and live our lives accordingly.
Quinton Beckham?
Of course, ignorance is bliss, so maybe
Ignorance is bliss.
Pre-pandemic was a little bit better.
I almost think you have to be a little bit bipolar about it. So, if you dial back to 30,000 feet, much like he asked, best year for who? If you dial back to 30,000 feet, there's things that we need to think about in terms of policy about the pandemic and this sort of thing. When I go back down to my own life, most of the stuff about the pandemic has either been woven into the threads of my everyday life or is over. And so...
What's that mean?
I mean that I don't walk around with a ton of adrenaline about it anymore. We read the stock market, but we don't look at our utility bill and worry about it because we read something about the stock market. We think, I should ponder this. But it doesn't make your heart rate go up. Because we're in between the lines. We're back in between the lines on the road of life, and we're not caroming off in some strange direction.
I like it. Crozet's finest, Mark McKinney has a comment and question for the gentleman, for the round table. And Lee, I'm very curious of your take on this. I'm always curious of your take. Mark McKinney, Crozet Community Advisory Committee. Mark McKinney, I believe a father of two, husband of one. Good thing it's husband of one. How is the Great Resignation going to impact 2022? People realize that quality of life has to come before work life. Parents found out they can work from different areas, cut back on working, and spend more time with family. Great Resignation. Over 400,000 people resigned in America in the month of November of one. Hold on, let me say that again. Over 400,000 people resigned in November in America. Father of four, husband of one, Mark McKinney.
All right. Well, I'll talk about my very small, narrow vision of expertise first, and then I'll try to generalize. So I think for education, we're going to see a lot of retirements after this year, and that's going to cause further stress. And then I think we are seeing a drop in teacher education. So I think it's going to mean that the education system is going to have to do what small businesses have already done, which is to adapt. How do you operate at near full capacity with 70% staffing? And that just takes some sort of pivot or some sort of creative problem solving. And many small businesses have already done that. And so I think the organizations that have been buffered from this so far, that have had some sort of subsidy or haven't felt the Great Resignation, can learn lessons from the small businesses that have already done this and the restaurants that have already done this. What do? Do you pick the days that you do business the most and then you close on other days? Do you be very selective with hours? Do you pay your employees more? Do you do all of the above? And so I think it's like almost every industry is going to start to experience it this year if they haven't experienced it already, and you just should use some of the lessons from the businesses that felt it almost immediately, which was restaurant industries and things like that.
Mark says, but Lee, government cannot adapt as quickly as private business. For government to adapt, it will take 5+ years, maybe.
I mean, same thing with big organizations. Yeah, for school systems, it's going to take. It takes years if you adapt in the way that you have to adapt or that you normally adapt. But if necessity is the mother of invention is a saying I use a lot. You adapt at a slow rate if you have that time period. If you say, hey, we only have 80% staff and we have to figure this out in 6 months, what do we do? I mean, when humans get together, we can come up with some very unique solutions. So I think government regulations aside, I am still very bullish about how large organizations and how small organizations will adapt in 2022.
What do you think, QB?
I think the Great Resignation gets a bad name.
How so? Why so?
Because it's when you say that Great Resignation, it sort of echoes Great Recession, and what's going on right now is not at all the same thing. Yes, you've had people sort of have this time where they were forced to sit at home and think about their lives and decide what was important. And we talk about work over home life over work, and that's not really, that's not an equation. Work is a part of your home life is a part of your work. One feeds the other. They're not separate things that you pick up and set down. What we are stepping away from is a meritocracy where people had to achieve higher because they just felt like they had to achieve, and so they showed up to work sick. They showed up to work when the kids needed them.
Didn't take
vacation days. They showed up to work when they hated it. They lost vacation days because they let them pile up because they felt like that was the only way to achieve whatever it was that was up there that was going to make their lives better.
This is what you were talking about yesterday.
Achieved it.
Judah Wickower.
So when we talk about people resigning, we're not really talking about people resigning. We are talking about people reevaluating what they want to do with their lives. They're choosing other ways to work and make money that are just not the typical way and not the way certain businesses want them to. And we are going to shift. We're going to find new ways to have business. We're going to find new ways to connect. We're going to find new ways to teach. And yeah, probably private industry will do it a lot faster than the government will, because that's a big shocker. That's never happened in history. I don't think this is a horrible thing. We're going to be forced to embrace new technologies, and we're going to be forced to really think about how we shape our lives. And I think this is for the good.
I'm going to counter and play devil's advocate here. No, I'm curious of your take. You could jump in here. This is a comment.
I'll just put it in perspective. Yeah. I think Quinton's right. When you say great resignation, you can probably tell whether somebody's a business owner or not. From a business
That's what he was saying.
From a business owner's perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. From an individual worker
it's not really bad for us as business owners. I have a freaking swimming pool of people that are qualified that can take a job if someone quit. Like swimming pool.
I think if you average across
that
all
will
business
work for
owners,
less money.
Yeah, I think that's generalizing based on your situation might be different. I think in general most business owners might see this as a bad thing, but for individual workers it's a good thing because they are finding a way to increase their happiness and find something that they're more passionate about.
Blake says this, the majority of those that resigned were overwhelmingly white, over 50 years old, and with money in the bank, taking early retirement or able to switch to a job of fulfillment rather than necessity because of their financial position. It's going to leave an adjustment period for business and industry to adapt and most likely create a further wealth gap and squeeze the middle class further down. 100% agree. Literally what I said yesterday. Like when these 400,000 folks, and I'm talking, sake of a talk show, when these folks resign because they want to pursue happiness, quality of life, because they want to try something else besides working 50 hours a week, they will wake up and realize they had perhaps a year of happiness, but debt stacked up, and then they're going to have to get a job somewhere else. You can't quit, resign, and what he said, what did you say yesterday? Quit, resign, go live in somebody's house, sell your house, and go live somewhere else, and not deal with the financial ramifications of those decisions.
I would maybe exclude my thought. I don't know that statistic is true, and if it is, I will exclude that from my discussion. I'm talking mostly about close to minimum wage workers who don't have a lot of options, probably don't own, and are just looking for a way to not let their work life dominate all of their decisions. That's what I was basing it on.
What are your thoughts, Neil? We're on a hot topic here. A lot of stuff is coming in here. QB, what are your thoughts here?
Well, one, we have a population over 65 that's greater than the size of Canada in terms of citizenry.
It's greatest in human history.
And so
baby boomers.
Wait to see all of those retirements roll through and see how that affects the job market as a whole. I think there's lots of, we speak of the Great Resignation as though there's no space for anybody to work, or that we're creating a separation based on did you start out good and did you start out bad. The separation of how you stepped into the scene, did you step in with privilege or did you not, is consistent regardless of what we're talking about. So it doesn't change this. If I make X amount of dollars, I have more options than the person that doesn't, whether we're talking about the Great Resignation or a snowstorm.
That's 100% true, right?
So let's assume that that's there already. It's also true when we talk about the pandemic. All of these things are true all the time in all the situations because options are, choices. And so I have more than somebody that makes half of what I do. I think what's good about this is a lot of the barriers to equity are becoming non-barriers.
How so? Specifically.
What's the first biggest barrier to upward mobility when we're talking about low income?
Home ownership. Getting out of rental situation.
Why is home ownership the barrier?
What do you mean?
Because it moves them away from where the higher paying jobs are. The
Yeah.
issue is actually transportation.
Interesting.
The issue is not home ownership, it's transportation.
Well, they're one and the same. They're associated. They're tied. If they could afford a more expensive home, they don't have to move away from the epicenter of employment.
So, does the movement to more virtual work opportunities help or not help? If you have government infrastructure that is supporting high-speed internet, it helps.
Okay,
Definitely.
So I'll play devil's advocate. I 100% agree with you for the sake of a talk show. Moving away from the epicenter of employment is likely moving to a region or an area where said Wi-Fi or fiber internet or whatever it is, ISP, is weaker. So moving away from the epicenter of employment is likely going to mean your connectivity to work is less, so you're not going to be able to have those hybrid jobs.
But that's the problem we're trying to fix right now.
Yeah,
But it's less true than it used to be.
So maybe the issue is not transportation, maybe it's not home ownership, maybe it's the public utility nature of internet.
Right.
Well, they're tied, yeah.
So we're having the same conversation about this as we were just having about the pandemic. Is it easier for me to transport an entire workforce of thousands of people from 100 miles away, or is it easier for me to get broadband to them?
That's a damn good question. It depends on the red tape of the jurisdiction.
In most circumstances, if we have the public will, which I'm really excited about, and I'm looking at our local council and board of supervisors with a lot of hope for the coming time. If we have the public will, it's much easier, it's much less expensive, and there's a lot of partnerships and a lot of already proven ways to do this. Just look south of us. There's high-speed internet in rural areas that didn't have it. And,
Agreed.
And a municipality participated in making that happen and is reaping the benefits from it. If they can do it, why can't everybody else?
Thoughts, Elberson? Quinton Beckham, well said.
100% agree. Most of the costs are incurred on the front end when you try to build that infrastructure. If you're trying to keep people in an area with escalating home prices, you're going to continue to incur that cost if you're trying to keep people there. So I think I 100% agree. It's a lot cheaper, more cost effective, and probably just better overall to try to bring broadband to the rural area.
Here's a challenging question, one that Judah brought up yesterday. I thought Judah was very much on point on the show yesterday. Is the American dream still the white picket fence, the backyard, and the home with the 30-year mortgage?
Why should we all have the same dream?
Not mine.
I know that's not yours.
Yeah.
No. We could pinch your fence white, though.
Do you have a fence?
No, Quinton probably just run over it anyway.
Did he hit your mailbox?
Here we go.
Unknown, maybe. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, I think, I don't know. I would imagine that the American dream is to be able to support your family and not have to worry about where your next paycheck is coming from. Something surprising. I'm sure you've heard this statistic.
Okay.
I heard it again.
I don't think that's an American dream.
You don't think so?
I think that is a pipe dream.
It's a pipe dream.
I think there's a difference between the American dream and a pipe dream. And for the sake, respectfully disagree. Talk show here. Not worrying about where your next paycheck coming from is not reality. Not worrying about how you're going to pay your bills or your rent or your mortgage or put gas in your car.
Do you worry about where your next paycheck's going to come from?
I do.
Huh.
You know why I worry about my next? Because I own the effing business.
Huh.
And now I'll put that in perspective. I worry a hell of a lot less in year 14 of owning than in year 1 of owning.
There might be some neuroses there. I would say that we're talking about different, like worry, like concern.
Worry's not maybe the best word.
Concern over whether or not that paycheck will actually come and whether it will be sufficient to cover your family.
Worry's not the right word. Maybe it's like motivated.
Yeah.
But Quinton, jump in here. The wheels are turning. I see them.
Well, I just think, I was sitting here thinking of the things I worry about, and most of them have to do with markets and real estate and industry and how it affects the people that work for me. I don't know that in any point I worry about being homeless in a week.
I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And so I think it is problematic and probably part of our greater societal issue when we define the American dream as a single dream, because I have dreams that will take a week and I have other ones that are completely unattainable unless I can download myself somewhere, and
it's coming.
And so I hope so.
Soon.
The clock is ticking.
We need to save some time for the science and technology segment. There's some really interesting things happening.
So I think we need to broaden that, and I think I'm more hopeful about that because of the Great Resignation, because people are getting off the treadmill that only led to one place.
Looking at this is from Sir Neil Williamson, looking at the country's demographics, we will see a silver tsunami of retirements.
Oh.
This will dramatically impact the workforce and technology that replaces workers. That's right. We covered that well. Trade jobs, this is from California. Trade jobs are about to become desperate for bodies and quality workers at a higher rate than we expected to retire slowly. It's been exacerbated due to the pandemic. Agreed. 100% agreed.
Agreed. A little statistic I looked up before the show. In the next 20 years, baby boomers are going to be passing on $50 trillion in wealth to their kids. Is that not crazy?
As you're talking inheritance?
Yeah.
I wish I was in that position. We were talking about that yesterday as well.
You want to be a baby boomer?
No. I'm talking about the inheritance. Yeah. I wish I was in that position.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Man, this has been good.
Can I just say something else? Again, to try to point this in a positive light, I think a lot of what we've been talking about is the fact that one good thing that's come out of the pandemic is this conversation around equity. I don't think we were having these same conversations 3 or 4 years ago, and I think the fact
specifically, what do you mean?
Just like a more equitable scenarios for people in under-resourced communities.
The equity, okay, and I think you're going to disagree with me.
Well, conversation from an extreme capitalist.
That's always my bet when the two of you are sitting here.
What's that?
Is that you're going to disagree?
We do, and it makes great content.
Yeah.
I think,
respectfully disagree.
I think the equitable nature of our society has worsened and not gotten better. The wealth gap is undoubtedly
definitely
more significant than ever before.
I'm talking about awareness, though.
Okay.
That's different. This is not something we're going to fix anytime soon. People with wealth are going to keep that wealth tooth and nail.
But awareness versus actuality is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Wealth gap worse than ever. You know this better than anyone. Educational gap worse than ever.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's another thing the broadband will fix.
The first thing, I agree. The first thing to do is for us to be aware. So kind of going back to the ignorance is bliss. Yeah, 5 years ago, we didn't know we could get hit by a pandemic, and I don't think that as a society we were as aware of the inequity as we are now. Raising awareness is the first thing. How we solve it, that's a several decades long problem there.
Oh, I mean, how we solve it is a lot to what he's saying with the ubiquitous broadband. That goes a long way in solving this. QB, the wheels are turning. What's on the brain? What's on the medulla oblongata over there?
Well, just, when we were here on Monday, we were talking about words for the year. And my one word was connection, because I do think, as I've watched people become more and more polarized, I do think being able to sit at the same table and disagree regularly and walk away friends.
We do that well.
We do that well.
Yeah.
Needs to happen more and more and more, even when those positions are diametrically opposed. No matter whose side you're on, being vitriolic leads to more of a cluster. And if I was watching somebody try and get up a street in their small 1980 Datsun, and when they couldn't do it, the people in the four-wheel drive trucks got out and helped them move along. And they didn't yell at them and not help them because they were out in the snow in a non-four-wheel drive little teeny car. They just helped them move along. And so the roads stayed clear. We spend so much time just pointing and yelling instead of helping move things along. We're creating our own roadblocks. And so I really hope that we can reach a point where you can have people with really opposing ideas that sit down, disagree, but they fight the ideas and stop fighting the people.
I love that. I love that. And I think that unfortunately, and we're the opposite, we try to be the opposite, but I think that unfortunately is a byproduct of social media. Where social media has created this line in the sand, and you're either on that one side of the line or the other side of the line, and you're opposing factions.
I just think it's too easy to dehumanize people.
That's what I'm saying.
On social media.
You get dehumanized. And what we're trying to do, which I think you appreciate the mission here, is try to utilize it as a platform for the good, as opposed to a divisive platform.
I'd say that might be the engine, the political divisiveness that they would say is the fuel for that. I think a lot of things get polarized because of political ideologies.
And what terrifies me,
and we got the midterms coming up, so I think the polarizing might get a little bit worse.
And wait till people, and we'll talk about this on the show at 12:30, is wait till we see what happens with the metaverse. Have you put any thoughts into the metaverse?
Plenty of thoughts into the metaverse.
Dude, who would you say is the most powerful person in the world? For me, it seems like it's a short list of Bezos or
Elon
Zuckerberg.
Musk. I'd say Elon. Oh well, I would say in terms of exerting that influence openly, I think Elon Musk is
More than Zuckerberg who controls content?
Probably Zuckerberg more, who controls content.
Okay, so I say the most powerful person in the world is Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And he's also one of the wealthiest. And Zuckerberg has said on record many times, his lasting legacy and how he will be remembered will be the metaverse, to the point where the dude rebranded his company. So we have arguably the most powerful...
That might have been a strategic move just as much as anything else. But
For sure. So we have the most powerful man in the world, who is one of the deepest pocketed people in the world, saying the metaverse will be his legacy. Giddy up and get ready.
We're going going dark. Take us to the light in the tunnel.
Oh my gosh.
Remember, this is the whole point of the show.
Oh, I'm sorry. I checked out.
I have some positives of the metaverse.
I think.
I'm curious of your take on the metaverse, though.
Okay, I want to respect Quinton's wishes. Quinton's wishes for the show was to recognize and reflect on what happened, but look for the positive that's going to happen in 2022. Right? Isn't that what you told me?
I think
we're doing that.
I think a lot of times we choose our own destiny.
Yeah, 100%. We make our own destiny. I 100% believe that. You don't believe that?
I definitely believe that. I find out I'm actually being more pessimistic on the show. He's actually you're being a little bit bearish.
I am being very positive.
On the bullish.
I'm being very positive. I'm always positive. I build and create my own destiny. I know that.
I mean, if you're asking for my personal opinion, you know how I feel about social media. I mostly just do not engage in it, but that's because I prefer to spend my time with what I define as genuine human interactions, and I don't think that happens with me on social media. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion and how they do that. I tend to try to devote my time to genuine human interactions. So just in general, I try to spend less time on a screen. I obviously have to work on a screen, but spending hours on TikTok and Instagram just doesn't even excite me anymore. When I watch my cousins do infinite scroll, not something I'm interested in anymore. So I think further deepening our engagement and reliance on social media is a bad thing. That's my personal opinion.
I think that's fair. Maybe I'm being bearish right now, but I think the world is heading to more screen time. And the screen time may be evolving to, they partner with Ray-Ban. Now you can go to the Sunglass Hut, you can go to the spectacle shop on Market Street, it's locally owned, buy a pair of Ray-Bans, tap the side of the Ray-Ban, and you're on social media, on your Ray-Bans, taking pictures on your Ray-Bans. And the Ray-Bans, dude, they look like your super sweet, dope Ray-Bans. You wear Ray-Bans, right?
I own some, yes.
Yeah, they look like your super dope Ray-Bans.
They're not like Google Glass.
They don't look like these hideous goggles, like you know what I'm talking about, the awkward ones.
Google Glass,
you can't even tell the difference now. It's crazy.
Contact lenses. Google owns several patents for contact lenses that will project a screen. I think eventually they'll just project the image directly onto your retina. That way you can't tell the difference.
What do you think about this, QB?
I think there's a lot of advantage to increasing economics because it pulls people out of poverty, and we have worldwide we have a much lower percentage of people in poverty than at any other time in our history. It might have had a dip in the last 2 years, but generally speaking, and I think there is a pitfall when that takes away from being human with one another and having actual in-person live connections. The big advantage, we were talking about DEI. And one of your bullet points that I was just looking at.
What's DEI?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
And let's just focus on equity for a second, because that's probably the biggest part of that would, if you could change one thing that would affect the other two, it's equity. That's not going to happen if we can't have difficult, uncomfortable, sometimes disagreeable conversations and still walk away seeing the other person as a human. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, even a friend. You learn things as you do it, because there is, not only is there not one American dream, but there's not one American life. How we have grown up and perceive the world around us varies so much. And I got a huge dose of that moving here from having lived my entire life in Southern California. It was like switching worlds and having to learn a whole new language socially and everything else. And it was so tough that I left. I'm surprised I came back, but here I am. We have to be able to do better at these interactions. And the better we do at this, the less these other problems will be problems.
Quinton Beckham. More comments from the West Coast. Julie Randolph on the Clayborne page. So Julie Randolph says, agree, awareness among those who aren't suffering financially is increasing. West Coast fans of Clayborne education. She also adds, the Economist suggests Zuckerberg's giant presence is increasingly a target of lawmakers. Definitely a target for lawmakers. You talk about the monopolistic nature of Dominion. Zuckerberg and Facebook and all his social brands fall in that same tree, if not worse.
One of the big differences being that most of what they peddle you don't need, but you need Dominion every day.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. You have a topic you wanted to close with.
Oh, Quinton and I were going to talk about some of the exciting things happening in science and technology. That's always very exciting, some of the things that could happen. Do you want me to launch
Yes,
something?
you have the bullet points.
Okay, so very fascinating, and this is something that will be a topic of the next show. We'll talk about electric vehicles. $3 trillion market cap in the next 10 years for electric vehicles. I think one of the viewers wants us to cover that.
Yeah, Mr. Larkin.
Mr. Larkin.
He said, what happens if everybody on the neighborhood block has a Tesla?
We'll cover that.
The grid would collapse.
We'll cover that next time. Another exciting thing, lots of tens of billions of dollars reported into fusion energy research this past year. I'm a little bit bearish about fusion energy research. I think they have, what problem do we have with fusion energy research?
Tritium.
We have a tritium problem.
We have a tritium problem.
Yeah, we have a tritium problem with fusion energy research. But I think, again, exploring alternative energy sources is a good thing. A lot of money went into quantum computing. I'm sure you probably saw some headlines on quantum computing. Google is developing a very high-end quantum computer right now. Slightly scary. I won't mention why it's scary because we're trying to keep positive, but it'll just make...
He's afraid that I really will be able to download and he'll never be rid of me. That's the thing that keeps him awake at night.
That goes into artificial intelligence, and that would mean that we would have some intelligence that we could download. It'd probably be
Artificially.
short download.
Artificially, yeah.
Artificially. And then I think, just sort of ending with, I guess, artificial intelligence is the one thing I think that's going to be both exciting and scary.
Yeah.
Going to happen this year. You know, when you look, so I don't know, are you familiar with the Turing test? You're familiar with the Turing test?
I am not.
The Turing test, it was based on a very brilliant scientist, Alan Turing, and he said that the way you should measure artificial intelligence is you have that artificial intelligence talk with a panel of judges, and then those judges decide whether they were talking to a human or not. And just in the last few years, you're getting AIs that can start to fool human beings into thinking that they're talking with a human and not a computer. It hasn't really worked its way into, like Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant. Those are very weak AIs. You've probably gotten that if you ask it to do something very simple and it doesn't do it, it's very frustrating.
Well, we were having this conversation yesterday with the ERPs.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence in Japan has penetrated the porn industry, pun intended, has penetrated the porn industry to the point where men in Japan, I'm not going to say what percentage.
I'm not going to say
I'm
what.
getting really anxious about where this is going.
This is a family show, right?
I'm not going to say what percentage. Men in
Cut his mic,
Japan
Judah.
are literally choosing instead to make connections with the opposite sex in AI than in real life, which is even more skewing their vision and their perspective and what they believe a relationship should or should not be.
I mean,
and you already have that with porn.
A more G-rated example of that.
Well, was G-rated.
A more G-rated example of that is more and more people are getting catfished on dating sites by bots.
Yeah.
They think that they're talking to another human being, and many of them, I saw a really interesting article, when they realize it's a bot, don't immediately stop talking to it because they feel this
connection.
Because what the bot is doing is the bot is trying to increase the amount of responses it gets, and if you're very empathetic and very complimentary, you'll get many responses on a dating site. And so
he's right. And you know why the bot is trying to increase the responses?
Well, they're probably monetizing it somehow.
The platform and or the people behind the bot are monetizing it.
Yeah. And more screen time. The whole industry just trying to get you more on the screen. So
it's the whole reason why Facebook was pushing the emotions of anger and frustration over the emotions of happiness and kindness with their algorithm, because the emotions elicited with anger and frustration generated more engagement.
Creates an OCD-like engagement.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So Quinton, take us to the good things. What is AI going to bring us that's going to be good in 2022?
How would it tie to real estate, maybe?
Well, one, I'm not sure the Turing test. The Turing test is more of a trick than it is an actual test.
Yeah.
It's the ability to deceive more than it is to be.
Yeah.
So I'm still of the belief that when AI actually does become self-aware, we won't know it.
Yeah. Oh, I think we're very far from there, and
we're a long ways away.
And the ones that have tricked it have used deceitful methods. You're
And
absolutely right.
used, yeah.
The
They did it
Ukrainian
on
boy
purpose.
test was a good example.
How will AI influence real estate that you're reading?
Already has.
It's doing it now, and it's, when you're saying AI, what we're really talking about is virtual spaces and the ability to connect over long distances and see things quickly in great volume.
Matterport?
Matterport, and even filtered searches. I can, if I want to travel in my electric car, I can now find hotels that have chargers. And so if you're talking about people looking across the country, they're not tied to a human to narrow down their search first. And so I think over and over and over, we're seeing that as time's moved on, the brokerage used to be super important. It was who you worked for.
Now it's your personal brand.
And now it's the agent.
Yeah.
And over time, that's going to matter even less. It's all about the consumer. And so in the end, it's all about the consumer. What are their needs? What's fastest, simplest, most expedient, and provides them the greatest value? And AI, virtual spaces, and all of our connectedness of all things are feeding that. And they're accelerating it.
Can I ask you a question? So I think
nice.
Are first-time home buyers always going to want a human agent? I could see like if you bought several homes before, having it be purely AI
Or a
assisted,
metaverse nature, or a metaverse version of Quinton.
I think every person that's buying their own, we have some of those, but
I think you would
I'm
be
not gonna
great
go
in the
there.
metaverse, Quinton.
Let's delete them quickly. I think everybody wants a human involved at different points in the process and can benefit from it because there's so much that can't be fed to an algorithm because it's unpredictable. I think what you're going to see, though, is the ability for a single, really well-qualified, skilled, educated professional to deal with many more clients than they did before. Because now the tasks that do not require that skill set are being done automatically. And so what you're seeing is a higher degree of efficiency. And as with all efficiencies, they usually result first from a diminishment of value, and then it kicks in and the value increases. And so I think what you're going to see is that market become tighter, and the need for the agent to be really well connected, really well versed, and connected, I mean technically, technologically connected.
More qualified agents? Will it drive agents because they're going to focus on?
I really hope it's going to
better?
force it. I really hope it's going to force it.
It seems natural.
I think
If
it's
you-
going to limit the agent pool. I think there are going to be less agents that are doing more business.
I mean, so you're saying it's going to replace, it's going to fractionate the agent's job, and some percentage of agents
It's
are going to lose
it's
their
going to
job.
take
That's going to happen
trend
everywhere.
that's a trend that we've seen for 30 years.
right. The agent
That's
that
gonna
was
happen
doing
everywhere.
one or two deals a year is in trouble when this trend becomes even more popular.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah. I do. I don't think the market's doing poorly, but I think that we've been able to support the sheer number of agents we've supported because it's been growing so quickly.
Agreed.
And because the transactions have become much more numerous. And over time, as that levels out again, I think we're going to see an interesting and different kind of market.
You guys are great, man.
Can I have one more question for Quinton?
Sure,
Okay.
please.
So there's a big, a big published study this year in biological science about looking at humans who live longer, and humans who live longer have better gene repair, and they made estimates that the actual human lifespan, when maximized, could be in around 130, 140 years. Would you want to live to be 130 or 140
Hell
years old?
yeah.
You
Why, what-
personally?
Here?
Well, of course he would. The man loves life.
I really, no, if you ask me today.
From a medical professional,
If you ask me today, the answer would be yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, frankly, I'm a little disappointed with our world and our country and where we're at technologically, because I feel like we gave up on so many things that were going so well.
Like what?
That were interesting. When was the last time a man stepped on another planet or moon? What happened to NASA? In fact, if you want to know what's going to happen to companies like vaccine
they got
companies,
privatized.
if they're
Good science does not happen with private companies. I
Yeah.
will say that over and over and over again.
So I think we have a lot of room for growth, and I think a lot of this venturing into technology land versus real life adventures is bad, and that we should reverse that. But I'm old. That's my opinion.
You're not old.
I'm not your generation. Let me put it that way.
You have a youthful spirit. It's contagious to be around.
And yeah, I would totally want to live to be 150 because I want to see what's next.
Right.
You'd also have to work. I mean, if you would have to work till you're like 110 or 100, right?
Probably longer.
Can you imagine work?
Yeah. Longer.
Well, I've never expected to live this long, and so I don't have a retirement plan. I suppose I'm going to have to change that record at some point, but that's a whole different story. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to work until I die, and let's just keep pushing that out.
Well, Quinton, you didn't think you were going to live this long. What if you've already been downloaded? What if you're living in a simulation right now?
There's no way I could tell.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Love that.
We don't know the math for it yet.
So that
Simulation
means you have to live life to the fullest because we can't tell.
There has been
simulation argument, right? Well, in terms of the probability that we're living in.
Are these the conversations at the poker table?
Sometimes
actually.
Yeah. They are?
God,
I got to get to this poker game.
There is some math. They're just not sure that even if you got it right,
yeah,
you could prove it.
Yeah. Well, you can't prove it. It's purely theoretical.
Yeah.
I mean,
Physicists are trying to.
It would be
I
egotistical
always-
to think that's not happening.
I assume I'm in some Japanese AI simulation because everybody around me is so handsome. It's just, surrounded by all
Thank
these
you.
good-looking
I love that.
people.
I
He's
know.
always
Thank you.
complimenting
Thank
us.
you. Quinton Beckham. That is a good way to end this show. You gentlemen made this an absolute breeze. 11:35 here on Real Talk, presented by Keller Williams, Yes Realty Partners, powered by Sigora Solar, Intrastate Service Company, ISC, Ross Mortgage, Dairy Market, Pearl Certification, Dave Fafara and Shenandoah Joe's Coffee, Charlottesville Settlement. You guys are amazing.
Thanks for having us on.
Quinton.
Thank
Well
you so
done.
much. It was fun.
Well done.
I hope the aliens return Keith and Yona.
Yes, they're in the simulation.
To be fair, the first time Keith got abducted by an alien was when Yona married him.
Keith is watching.
She kept him as a pet. She was like, this
watching.
little
Yeah.
primitive being, I'll keep him.
Judah Wickhauer is the man behind camera, our North Star. We will be back in 55 minutes, guys, with the mayor of Charlottesville on the show. You guys have a good morning. Take care. Well done.
The new mayor.